Hello, everyone, and welcome to Test Chamber. I am your temporary host. My name is Dan Ryckert, and my boss, Andrew Reiner, has specifically requested that I be, quote, Professor Serious Dan on this because I'm in the hosting chair. So without further ado, sitting to my right is Joseph Juba.
Thank you, Professor.
Yes, and then playing the game on the Wii U gamepad is Kyle Hilliard to my left.
Professor Ryckert, thank you for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure having both of you gentlemen here. Now, this is a video game for the Nintendo Wii U console. It was released, Kyle, did it come out? Or Joe, you actually did a review.
It comes out on September 15th.
Okay, and you reviewed it for us.
Right, and it's one of those weird situations where it released in Europe and Japan in late August.
Okay.
So, some reviews have been out there, but I gave it a 7.5. Which is, I think, a little bit lower than some people were hoping for. I'm certainly not alone in my kind of disappointment from this. This is a game from Platinum, which also did like Bayonetta, some of the same team members behind games like Beautiful Joe and Okami and those folks. But even though I'm not alone in being a little disappointed by it, there certainly is a contingent of people who love this game too, and it has some stuff to love, which is one of those problems when you're dealing with, in my opinion, a game that's like in the sevens. It's one of those things where there's a lot of potential and a lot of things you can like that then sort of don't always follow through or work well together.
And it seems like one of your main complaints from your review was having to look down, like during some fast-paced fights, and looking down and having to draw these shapes that sometimes are not recognized correctly.
Yeah, I mean that's not the only problem that it has going on, but yeah, I mean certainly as we'll see, a lot of let's hold off on talking about that until we get a little bit further, until we can actually illustrate what's going on with.
Let's talk about this giant school bus.
Because what's happening right now, like the basic premise is that there's this group of international superheroes called the Wonderful 100, and they're all keep their secret identities. So this guy is obviously one of the Wonderful 100, but this is him in like his nerd teacher real life guy.
Well, now, did he plan this field trip? Because I'd have to think there'd be some disciplinary action, because this is very unsafe for the school children, I believe.
So the idea is that there are these world defending heroes, and what do you know? There's an alien invasion happening. So it very much taps into that kind of like that kind of after school TV of like the Power Rangers and things like that. So there's a lot of daring do going on in terms of just the general like thematic tone, and the plot is basically just like you're superheroes and there are robots and aliens and stuff, and that's kind of as deep as it goes.
And so you are the 101, correct?
Well,
101st, I suppose.
Is this a spoiler?
It's not. I mean, it's not really a spoiler. It's that like the game presents it like you're the +1, but then there's another character in the game that sort of gets brought into the fold. That you could argue that character is also the 101st.
Okay.
So anyway,
and Kyle has not played this before. He's playing here. Is this? I assume this is the very beginning of the game. Right?
Yeah, this is the very beginning. So you sort of get the basic mechanics and stuff like that laid out for you. But of course, we're not seeing what's really the game's about quite yet, and that is really the idea is you're not just controlling one hero, you're controlling a mob of heroes. That's kind of what the whole Wonderful 100 is all about, is when you, like, as the game goes on, you gather more and more of these companions. And that's why I think it's drawn some comparisons to games like Pikmin, because there's an element of, like, mob control going on. So you are really not controlling, even though there's a little, it says that that's the leader. You really want to think about it less like you're controlling a single character and more like you are controlling the sort of swarm that has various abilities. All the enemies have like totally crazy names, like Kufu and
Kafun?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a Dogu?
Yep. Stuff like that all over the place.
Okay. Do you feel like this is a game that benefits from the Wii U hardware?
Whoa,
or do you
hold
think
on.
this? Would you
Let's
rather?
run to red. I'm sorry. This is the kind of stuff that really where the game succeeds is really in its execution of this sort of gonzo action style.
This is very Power Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, all of the ridiculous gestures and just the totally overwrought dialogue and transformations and stuff. It's just a great homage to that style. Anyway, so in answer to your question, Dan, about the Wii U, I mean, this is one of those. This is a Wii U exclusive, and one of those games that I think people were hanging a lot of hopes on when it comes to the console's ability to deliver, worthwhile experiences. And like I said, there is some stuff to like about it, but I do not think that this game is an argument or necessarily like a standalone justification for the Wii U's features. So that being said, it does some more clever things than I've seen in other games. So in other games, you get a lot of your map's on your lower screen, or some menu stuff is on the lower screen. And in this case, it does basic stuff like there are some shapes that you need to draw, which we'll get into very shortly here. And that can be, you can use the touchscreen for that. But then there are also kind of clever moments where it's like on the top screen, you're watching let's say that there's a ship flying through space. So you're watching that happen, and there are enemies and stuff that you need to deal with up there, but you're actually piloting the ship on the lower screen. So it's like you sort of see your group in the cockpit, and you sort of need to jump on controls to go to the left, controls to go to the right, controls to fire your beam. So and in that case, even though your attention's divided, it's not necessarily in a bad way. It's kind of fun to be to have to juggle what's going on one screen with what's going on the other, and kind of manage all that simultaneously. So in that case, I think that they make some of the most clever use for the two screens that I've seen on the Wii U yet.
Well, so you talk about managing the squad of other superheroes. Is it something where you gradually acquire more of them, or once we get past kind of this tutorial stuff, is it just this bulk? Hey, here's 100 dudes.
Oh yeah, you gradually acquire them.
Okay.
So think of it as you're going through your normal playthrough of the game. You will acquire there will be guys that are hidden in various places. So maybe there's someone who's just standing around yelling for help, and you circle them by drawing a circle, and then you get a little info screen that says, "Hey, you just got Wonder Juggler to join you," or something like that. They're all, they all kind of have ridiculous themes. And they there's some guy who's wearing a post a mailbox on his head, and things like that. So,
do they all get their own intro like this?
No, well, so there are those sort of characters that are standing around, and then there's a handful of see what I mean? I really
really
think
funny.
that, it's clever. There's a handful of story characters. So Wonder Blue, Wonder Green, Wonder Pink, Wonder Black, Wonder Yellow.
Is there a theme uniting all of those characters?
Yeah, so those characters are sort of the more story-centric characters. So those you get through the course of the story, and each one of them sort of has a new weapon that a new shape you can draw that adds a new dimension to the combat and stuff. So really, it's you start out with a small number, but you can build up your force through sort of temporary squad members. So you can have 100 squad members before you actually have the wonderful 100. But you just don't get them after a checkpoint. The wonderful 100 are the ones that sort of stick with you throughout regardless.
Okay. Now, Kyle, if you can just keep it down for a little bit so Joe can tell us more about the game.
Sure, I know I've been talking a lot.
Well, this is actually one of the reasons that I put Kyle on the controls there, is because there's a lot to talk about with this game, and it can get kind of hectic when the action picks up. So I felt like I would not do a very good job of playing.
I'm just trying to concentrate on the text. That's
Yeah. So here we get to the drawing stuff.
Oh.
Just draw a circle on the gamepad.
Oh, but you can use the control stick.
Or
too.
you can use the control stick. Either one of them. And then hit the A button. Sorry.
Oh, and then hit the A button.
Yep.
Oh, okay. That's what I was missing. Oh. I got a big hand now.
So this is what they call a unite morph. So that means that like the people that follow you can sort of combine their energy and turn into very large shapes and weapons and stuff that you use.
I'd probably be making a doctor's appointment if my hand started looking like that.
Yeah. So, and now we're seeing it again with the sword. So if you want, this comes into play more than just in these quick time events, though those certainly happen. When you're in normal combat, you can draw those shapes to choose like what is your primary weapon for that moment, and you can also use it to be like if you're attacking an enemy, and you're using the gauntlet, the red one, you can draw a straight line and press a different button, and that'll call in like a sword as kind of a secondary support weapon. Another thing that I wanted to go back and talk about quick. Dan, you mentioned do you get the whole wonderful 100 from the beginning? This is a game that's in a lot of ways is built for replay. So you'll beat the game once, and through the course of a playthrough, there's no way in one playthrough that you're going to acquire like all of the special moves you can buy and all of the wonderful 100 to join you.
It's kind of like, a Bayonetta or, some of those action games like Devil May Cry.
Very much like that. A game that is built for post-game progression, which is actually one of the things about Bayonetta in particular that I just thought they did really, really well. For this one, I found it a little less compelling, because for me I found fewer carrots on a stick, fewer things that I wanted to keep playing to earn. In a lot of ways in this game, you have to really be motivated by just getting a good score, by being I got a silver on this part, but I want to get pure platinum. And in a lot of ways, that's what keeps you going. Yeah, Kyle, give it a shot by try drawing a straight line and hitting the A button.
Yeah. Okay, so you're basically changing weapons with your drawings to a certain degree?
Right, exactly. Okay. So you're swapping weapons by drawing it, but now draw a circle.
Okay.
And
circle.
Hit. I don't remember what button it is. I don't remember the actual name of it. Is it the X button? It's the one that's at the top of the diamond.
Okay,
so there's another one. There. So that's how you call in a support weapon. So it's hard to see in these sort of intro sections, but that ends up being a huge component in terms of generating combos. So you can use your attacks from your leader and call in support attacks from other characters to do more damage to enemies, to keep them juggled in the air, to string together these big combos. But that's where this thing that you touched on earlier, Dan, comes into play, is that one of my complaints about the game is that things like that happen kind of frequently.
What's happening
where you try and draw a shape and it doesn't quite recognize the shape that you were trying to draw.
And if you're in the middle of a boss fight or something like that, it can be a bit...
Right. And now I know that there are people out there who are look, you just need to get better at it. You just need to get better at drawing shapes. Which, the whole learn to play excuse gets kind of old when it's when you are controlling a character in the midst of a super hectic fight. You don't have the time or the luxury to carefully draw the shape the way you need to, and that's part of what ends up being a problem, is that both of the input methods that you have kind of have drawbacks. So if you try and draw with the touchpad, it's a lot easier to be precise. It's a lot easier to get the exact shape that you're looking for, but that also means that because Kyle, describe what you see on the lower screen.
There are some dots on what looks like green graph paper.
Yeah, but there are also buttons to open menus and stuff down there.
Yeah, input panel, quick help. Pause.
So-
Miiverse.
It'd be one thing if you could just sort of mindlessly swing over there, but you always like unless you're very careful about where you're going, you risk opening up these menus and sort of like just throwing a wrench in things even more. There's also the fact that it's difficult to draw with just like your thumb over there, which means that you kind of have to remove one of your hands from the gamepad to draw that way also.
Okay. Now, Kyle, can we do a quick experiment here? If you could just draw a penis on the gamepad.
Yeah, absolutely.
What happens then?
Sure, Professor Ryckert.
All right. Yeah, let's for medical purposes.
There we go.
Kyle,
I've only got so
that's
much
a
room
sleep
here.
mask. That's not a.
Let's do this for real now.
And Reiner, if you're watching, this is Kyle drawing the penis. I am being the serious host. So, all right, it's wiggling
There we
around.
go.
That
Okay,
can be
so-
seen as humorous too.
I thought you were gonna make it, Dan. I really was gunning for you.
Hey, it's Kyle
There
that's
we go.
doing it. I'm just, you know.
Uh-huh.
Hey, I'm just doing what I'm told. I'm just here to play the game.
Yeah.
Okay?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's my purpose.
So, Kyle, hit the is it the X button? I can't believe I don't remember which one's which. I know the feel of them.
Let's see. Well, first I guess. Okay, so I got my chain here.
So, if you hit the one on the left, it lets
these
you
guys go.
it lets you run.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
And that's an important thing too, because not only is that a dash move, it also like brings your group closer together, so they're not as spread out. Now that has some different effects too, because if your group is spread out, they'll kind of run interference with lesser enemies that are around you, so they won't actually like come and damage you as the leader. But they're more spread out, so they're more susceptible to like attacks and stuff like that.
This is telling me to draw something.
Yep.
I guess.
Well, how
There you
much
go.
of this quick time event type of stuff is there?
There's I don't know. I mean, like there's some of it in every level, but I will say that they often use it correctly in the sense that it highlights cool moments. You know, like it's cool when like they don't just do it for inane crap all of the time. It's like
I saw Jason is laughing and smiling over there, and I looked at the screen. And I was just embarrassed to even recognize what he was seeing from that last with the bridge going flaccid and then becoming. It's Jason. Reiner, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we had to talk about Jason's
Classic.
maturity here. So,
Classic.
but yes, back to the serious talk.
yeah, I forgot what I was saying. That's all right.
Jeez, Jason. Should have got Hanson. Kyle, are you having fun?
I'm still learning the game, I guess. This kid looks kind of angry.
Alan Smithy. That is
Yeah.
a weird reference
Yep.
for this game to be making.
The other control input is the right stick. And I should also mention you can play it with a Wii U Pro controller. There will be times when you need to reference the second screen on the gamepad, but you can control with the Pro controller also.
I'm getting a little bit of like an Okami vibe, ever so
Yeah.
slightly,
Oh,
from
yeah, yeah.
like having to draw shapes with the right control stick.
Yep. And the problem that I ran into with the right control stick is that it's more convenient in terms of stopping, like getting in a quick combo or something, but it's a little more frustrating because it's harder to get it's more difficult to get accurate shapes out of it. There's also one thing I wanted to point out about what happened earlier too. Kyle tried to jump across a bus and died, and then immediately respawned. That brings me to the continue system, where this game, also kind of like Bayonetta, is sort of unforgiving. Like it grades you at the end of various sections and missions and stuff like that. But you should not expect to be getting necessarily platinums, golds, even silvers consistently until you really get more characters, get more moves, get a feel for what's going on. So don't go back to the Wonderful Mart for a sec. Go to Unite Morph. So some of these things are basic moves. These aren't just I should think about getting some extra moves. Unite Guts is your primary defense move.
Okay.
that is how you block a lot of incoming attacks.
So you turn into a Jujubee.
Exactly. And like Unite Spring is your primary evasion move. So you want to get that as soon as you can.
Okay.
And then, then other moves that you buy kind of build up on those basic things also.
So it's a shot, but it's really it's more like you're leveling up to get required moves and stuff, right?
That is how you do it. So then about the continue system, even though the game is difficult, like it is difficult to beat the bosses without dying and stuff like that. The continue system means that as long as you're persistent, you can get through. Because like even if you're in the middle of a boss fight and you lose all your health, there's not like a checkpoint that starts you at the beginning of the boss fight again. You just pick up where like the boss's health left off.
So it's like a Bioshock Vita Chamber.
Yeah. A lot like that. So it in a game where the sort of intensity of the combat is the centerpiece, I think I guess like compared to something like Bioshock where it for me the combat didn't seem to be as central in a lot of ways. It was a lot more about like storytelling and stuff like that too. In a game where like that kind of combat and that kind of precision is really supposed to take center stage, it takes a lot of the satisfaction out of combat if you know that like, well, I'm just going to win either way. So like, obviously I did my best to improve and, to get good at the game. But there's never that point that forces you to do it. As opposed to, like I remember fights in Beautiful Joe where it's just like, well, I just won't get through this game because this boss is too hard until you learn how to do it. Okay. And that just doesn't happen in this. Speaking of boss fights in this though, there is one, there's a boss fight that you go through 5 times. So it's a longish game. I think it probably took me about 15 hours to get through. But not all of that is pure gold. Some of that is padding, where you're doing like some repetitive stuff, fighting some of the same enemies over and over again, stuff like that. Okay.
So, I mean, it does seem like overall, like, there is fun to be had here. It seems like there's some good stuff there, but, I mean, obviously your score would indicate as such, 7 point...
7.5.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where, like, I like the tone of the game, and when the combat is working, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to figure out, like, how you take down enemies. A big part of how you do that is like throwing. It's not just about using your mob to create other shapes. It's like there's also a button you can press, Kyle, that like throws all of your allies onto enemies and sort of like sends them forward in a big group attack. And that is totally critical in terms of like, that's how you make them more susceptible to your attacks and stun them. So you can like launch them up in the air and stuff like that too. So, like the way there are so many cool ideas in the way the combat works, and for me, I just felt like the implementation left something to be desired. Like I wanted more reliability when it comes to entering the commands. I wanted, it would have been nice to just feel like there was some urgency to combat instead of just knowing that if I died, I mean, I guess you can. Like that's a self-imposed restriction, but it's still kind of disappointing in a game that leaves it to the player, because it also like does not hold your hand, and that's something I actually really appreciate about the game. It makes you sort of figure a lot of the things out by yourself. But yeah, in a game that takes that figure it out by yourself approach, it seems kind of weird that it like is as forgiving as it is with continues and stuff too.
Well, I think that'll be a pretty good look at The Wonderful 101. It's available now at retail and in the
September 15th.
eShop. September 15th is when it is available. Joseph, thank you for your time today.
You're very welcome, Professor.
Absolutely. And Kyle Hilliard, thank you for manning the 6th there.
You're welcome, Professor Ryckert.
All right. Well, we will be back with more Test Chamber soon. Thank you for watching.